Holiness is the identifying mark of authentic manhood. Without holiness, we cannot talk of authenticity. Without God involved, there's no holiness.
So Peter argues therefore that submission is for holy women, which means submission is holy, and therefore those who are not holy cannot do it. It is impossible if you are not holy.
For God has not called us unto uncleanness, but unto holiness. That's what 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 verse 7 says. He has called us not to uncleanness, but unto holiness. 2 Corinthians chapter 7 verse 1 says, having therefore these promises, dearly beloved, let us cleanse ourselves from all filthiness of the flesh and spirit, and perfect holiness in the fear of the Lord.
So holiness, when you say somebody is holy, it means that that person does not depend or lean on another person for sustenance.
1 Peter chapter 1 verse 15 says, but as he which has called you is holy, be ye also holy in all manner of conversations.
Holiness means I belong to God and I can exist, me and God, with no one. Holiness means all I need is God and I have embraced him. I can live.
God called us out of darkness into his light. For what purpose? That we may be holy. Anything associated with God must be holy. What am I saying?
In other words, holiness is a protection against abuse.
God says to Abraham, walk before me and be holy. God comes to Moses in the plains of Midian, and when he sees the bush burning, he comes closer. God says, Moses, take off your sandals because the ground you're standing on is holy. God chose to be worshipped among men, and he set up his sanctuary. He sanctified the temple. He sanctified the priest. He sanctified the Levites. God said he wants a holy nation that worships him in a holy way, that eats and drinks in a holy way, that dresses and have relationships that are holy. And when they worship in holiness. Anything associated with God must be holy. You can be a loving liar, my friends, but you cannot be a holy liar. It is possible to be a loving adulterer, but you cannot be a holy adulterer. And it is possible to have your own sexual orientation and be a loving person, but it is not possible to be holy with that lifestyle. The Bible is very clear, my friends. We are able to be loving even as thieves, but we cannot be loving, we cannot be holy thieves. The Bible is very clear that we can be a loving idolater. You can practice principles of love and be a good person, good and respected and honorable and a jolly fellow, but it is not possible to be that and still be holy when you're living as an idolater. Friends, it is possible to be a loving sinner, but you cannot be a holy sinner. God is looking. God sitting on his throne is looking down and asking, who shall I send? Who is that man who is authentic that I shall send out to preach to the world? We're living in an age that is so challenging. We live in an age where loving has become the new normal. That sounds familiar, being a loving person. But friends, God still expects us to go beyond the acts of kindness and love and be holy.
It is difficult to abuse a person who's holy, because a person who's holy cannot suffer from a low self-esteem.
So holiness is an identity that we cannot take away from all our minimum standards as men of God. The only thing that let us know that we worship God is holiness of character.
A person who's holy knows that she has value in the eyes of God. So even if you use abusive words to despise her, she cannot accept that because she knows who she is in the presence of God.
So friends, I just want to come to you and say, by all standards, by all measurements, an authentic man is one that loves God, loves his wife, and loves his children, that he will give himself to even die for them.
Holiness puts an emphasis on one's individuality. Holiness says in your submission, you do not lose your individuality. Because if you are holy, therefore you have to worship God as an individual.
God loved, he gave. God was willing to lose, to impart himself that he may save you. And God says in the book of Ephesians chapter 5, husbands, love your wives even as Christ loved his church. God is looking for authentic men who can love genuinely to the point where they sacrifice of themselves for others.